So, are the live-action Transformers movies everything that we had hoped for? Let's talk about that, shall we? So, yes, hey everybody, it's me, Sammy, otherwise known as Skullbone, back again for another response video. Adding my input to the TFYTC's recent homework, and this particular subject is regarding the live-action movies, because it's that time of year again, or it's that time where we will be getting this sort of thing again, where the next movie is on the horizon, Transformers 5, The Last Night. And everybody is excited about it. Everybody's not so excited about it. So at the moment, I think the movie, because the trailer came out a little while ago, and everyone is raving about it. Everyone's disliking it and saying that it's good and saying it's bad, and the usual thing of Michael Bay wrote My Childhood, G1 Forever, and all that sort of thing. So I just thought I'd get in front of the camera and give you my whole input on all this, because I feel that even though it won't mean anything, I think it's just for me personally where I'm sitting with this franchise at the moment and how I feel about Transformers 5 and the movies in general. So let's get on to the meat of the issue, which is, are the movies everything that we had hoped for? Well, it's a sort of bipolar answer to that, because in a lot of ways, in this particular franchise, the movies have done a very good job of reinventing the franchise, pushing it into a new direction, and giving it a bit more of a backbone than it did around the uh, early to mid 2000s, when everybody was just sort of moving away from that because of the Unicron trilogy. I mean, it's thanks to the movies that I think we have things like Prime, and we have things like animated, and we have things like different forms of medium that we can go to in Transformers that have kind of really rode on that backbone for a little while. And the movies, I mean, take them for what they are. I mean, at the best of times, they can be enjoyable action films, but at the same time, though, the negative side of those movies is that they really don't do anything as storytelling movies, because, okay, yes, the action is good, and that's the whole issue, is that the action in those movies is very, very good when it can be seen. But the problem with those movies is that they do a very lousy job of really telling a story in giving you characters that you are invested in, giving you a story that you can follow in a very easy way that doesn't sit you down and torture you like a fucking idiot. And the main reason being is that they just sort of drag on and they really don't go anywhere. So that's sort of the main issue with those movies that I've always had. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the first movie. I owe a lot to the first movie for getting me back into the franchise again, because um, when I was in my mid to late teens, and when that movie came out, I was a bit excited about it. And when I saw it for the first time, I loved it. And now I'm almost willing to just put it away and say, I'm glad that that movie did a thing to help me get reinvested into this franchise. But at the moment, I think that the franchise is just sort of going in a direction that I really can't follow, and that's why I'm choosing to walk away from it. This is right now. I mean, not back then, but this is right now. And are the movies everything we hoped for? Well, I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes, they are, and part of me really wants to say that they're not, because I think that for everything said about Michael Bay, I mean, okay, he might not have been the ideal person to make this sort of movie, because he doesn't really know how to tell a story, he doesn't really know how to develop characters, or make anything invest in the audience. But at the same time, you can't really deny that he is a very good action director, and that's fine. But action without a story, without a soul, isn't a movie that I think really is worth investing in. And that's just how I feel. I mean, you don't have to agree with me if you don't want to, but I mean, my problem with those movies is that you have to get through some of the most awful parts of those movies, particularly the really juvenile humor and the offensive racial stereotypes and the blatant misogyny and all the convoluted nonsense that they just shove into you for a very long period of time, and you're just expected to eat it all up regardless of how good or bad it is. So that's where I'm coming from with those movies. My issue with those movies is they aren't everything that we had hoped for, because they really aren't made for us. They're made for a new generation of fans who can appreciate the franchise a little bit more. because I mean, looking at it in from my perspective, I mean, we've had G1, we've had Beast Wars, we've had Beast Machines, and we've had the Unicron trilogy. So all those things that we've all grown up with have sort of moved on, left us behind, and we can look back on those and say that those happened. So there's that element to it, and at the same time, we as older fans have some different paths that we can go on where we can say we can either watch that show or we can read that comic or we can play that video game and not like X, Y, and Z. So I think in some way that there is something good about that, and at the same time, I think that the movies, they aren't everything that we had hoped for, and I really, because I saw the Last Night trailer and I watched it a couple of times and I just went, eh, it is what it is. I mean, these movies are doing a good job for what they are, but at the same time, though, I just want a story and characters, and then again, you go ahead and say, well, why do you want that when you've got all this other stuff you can go to? Well, yeah, and I'll admit, I can go back and watch G1 any day of the week, but at the same time, though, I mean, that was then. How about now? I mean, we have characters then from ages long gone by, but how about characters from now? You know, I think that these movies could actually do a good job of getting into some really good character development, but we don't really ever do that as much. And yeah, you can get you, and yeah, there's a part of you that says, well, you don't have to engage with that, so don't bother watching them. It's easier said than done, though. I mean, because there's a whole issue of, well, every Michael Bay is going to keep making these films till the end of time because they make billions of dollars. Because every time he makes another one, it makes a lot of money, and then of course other people go and see it, and that's the whole issue with these movies, and that's kind of why I'm just sort of, well, I'm just backing away because. You know, Michael Bay's not going away from these movies anytime soon because even though he's kind of said I'm not gonna do any more after number 5, that's a lie. I think he's gonna come. I think he's gonna get bribed to come back again, and that's sort of the issue. Um, Especially since there are more sequels planned, and I just haven't got the energy for it anymore. But going on to what I said regarding are these movies everything we'd hoped for, they aren't everything we'd hoped for in regards to character development. I mean, that's the main issue, and that's kind of what I'm after. But they're everything that we'd hoped for in regards to its action and its design, particularly for the robot characters. I mean, everybody bitches about the designs, and I'm one of the few people that actually likes them. I like the designs because they blend well with the modern world and they blend well with the real world. But at the same time, though, I think good designs with some good writing could actually really go hand in hand well together. If you have good designs and bad writing and bad storytelling and bad writing, they sort of they're very separate from each other, and that's sort of my issue with that. So, and here's the thing with the Transformers movies, I'm really not expecting them to be on the same plutonic level as maybe Lord of the Rings, because that doesn't work. I really can't imagine Transformers being on the same level as something like Tolkien, and I can't imagine Transformers really being in anything that really delves into the human condition. I mean, that's something that you really wouldn't want to do, and you wouldn't want to stretch that into an hour-long movie about the human condition in a Transformers film when you could be seeing something a bit more interesting. There are other movies that do that, and Transformers ain't the franchise that does it. So, where do I sit regarding these movies? With the recent movie that will be out next year, because as of 2016 now, it'll come out in 2017. So where I sit with these movies at the moment, I'm very indifferent. I mean, part of me doesn't want to go and see it because it'll just be the exact same thing that we've seen 3 times in a row. Part of me probably will end up seeing it because it's Transformers, and I think at this point everybody will probably just go and see that movie because it's got Transformers attached to it. And I think I'm very divided between that issue because I think at this point I'm kind of really done with Transformers now. I think that the movies aren't doing anything for me anymore, and they aren't going in a direction where I can really invest in. I mean, if everybody else wants to like them, fine. I mean, that's the whole issue. And everybody always goes ahead and says, "Oh, well, I want a G1 movie. I want this to be the like it was from the cartoon when I was a kid." That's just not going to happen. And do you want it to happen? Because it wouldn't work to have in this day and age a Transformers film where it was set in the 1980s and it had the characters in the alt modes from the 1980s. It would probably have worked better back then when that sort of idea was being tossed around in filmmaking. Um, but that wasn't meant to be. So I think for the moment we got to make the best of what we got. And I think here's the thing with Transformers at the moment and the movies and what they're doing. If it makes money and it pushes people into making better content that is slightly better or more so on a higher level than the movies, then more power to them. I think that's the good thing about Transformers and this franchise is that you don't really have to watch one to watch the other franchise, because you can watch G1, and if you don't like that, you can go watch Beast Wars, and if you don't like Beast Wars, you can go watch Prime, and if you don't watch Prime, then you don't. If you don't like Prime, you can go and watch any one of whatever is watchable. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your option to watch whatever I think is what you want to watch. Um, but where I sit with the Transformers movies and if they are what they are at the moment, um, I'm just kind of bored of Michael Bay. I mean, I know that he's attached to the series and everything, but I think that give somebody else a chance to direct these movies. I mean, you have an industry of directors and writers who can bring this franchise into a different direction and bring new ideas to it. And I think with these current movies, especially since there are a few more sequels on the way, and Michael Bay isn't set to direct any of them, even though I'm pretty sure he probably will come back. There's no denying that. I think he probably will. And even though now there's a new set of writers, those movies are going to be set in the same universe as the last four that came out. So I'm just thinking, why not just stop there and reboot the franchise from there? Because I think it would actually seem a little bit logical to maybe say, okay, so we've done that series, that's done. Let's try and focus on this series and try and take that into a different direction. And maybe you won't have to watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to really know the backstory of any of these other characters, because they don't really do that. I mean, I think that the only bit of material that they ever really do that in these movies is the expanded universe in the comics, and they don't really expand into the whole detail that in the movies. I mean, they mention some things at a drop of the hat, but they don't. But they sort of just go right by the audience. So if you're a fan, and if you're a fan and you've actually read those comic books, then chances are you would know why this character is the way that character is, how he is or how she is. In the movies, you just don't get that. I think in the movies, you just see explosions, and you see a convoluted story, and you see characters that just don't really have much emotional investment in each other, and I don't know. I think that's my whole issue with the movies. And are they everything that we'd hoped for? They are everything that we had hoped for in helping the franchise go into a different direction and help become bigger than what it was 20, 30 years ago. But at the moment, I kind of want something different, if that makes any kind of sense. Because I think that the issue with the movies is that they're doing well for what they are, but I think that it would be greater if they could do something a little bit different. And I'm not expecting Transformers to be like an epic masterpiece, because that just doesn't work. It's not the kind of franchise that really delves into epic storytelling. Like I said, I mean, this is Transformers, not Tolkien. Plus, I think it would actually be better as well if try different ideas rather than just reheat the same plate of food every time. It would work. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, that's my whole take on the issue. If anybody likes these movies, then fine. I mean, you're entitled to go and watch those movies, and at the end of the day, if you enjoy them and you get something out of them, then more power to you. Because at the end of the day, I think the issue of choice when it comes to watching a movie is you can either say, okay, I don't like that movie, I can walk away from that and pretend it never existed, or I can pretend I never watched it, and I can go watch that movie, and I can get something out of that even more than I did from the movie that I just saw a few minutes ago. That's my whole take on that. Whether or not it really applies to these movies, I think that at this stage with the Transformers films, they are what they are. I mean, people are going to watch them regardless of how they feel about them. I personally I'm not invested at this point anymore. I would like to see the franchise go in a new direction that doesn't rely heavily on what we've already seen and maybe have a bit more to it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, what I've seen in the Last Night trailer. I mean, with what was it? King Arthur and the Nazis and Anthony Hopkins doing the narration, which is surprising because he's in this movie for some reason because every actor likes money. Plus, I'm surprised that Anthony Hopkins is in this franchise. He'd be the last person I think would be ever approach this. But then again, people need to earn money, so I guess that's the whole way of it, of the whole way of it being, I guess. So anyway, I guess my whole take on the whole issue is the movies are a sort of mixed bag in regards to everything that we had hoped for and everything that we did not want. And I think that as good as they are, or as good as some people think that they are, don't you think that as under a different director and maybe different writers? I mean, I'm not counting The Last Night at the moment, but I mean the last three, and even number one to a lesser extent. As good as you think that those were, and even though they did a really good job of reinventing the brand and bringing people back into the brand and getting, starting up a generation of reviewers on YouTube, don't you think that as good as these movies were, as good as you think that those movies were, they could have been so much more than this? And I'm not talking like a deep story. I mean, they could have been fun to watch, they could have been engaging to watch, and you could have left the cinema with something, and the experience wouldn't have been a tiring, long, and boring one. Because I think that's the whole issue. Really, you got to remember. I mean, with every pace that these movies go for, whether it be 2 or 3 hours long, you just feel like you're just wasting time and not really getting anything out of that. And I think that in that time, you could be telling a story, you could be investing in characters, you could be reinventing the mythology for a new for a new audience and for a new generation. And with the right director and with the right writers at the helm, you could do something with that. It's not hard. I think that the good thing about the franchise is that it's got so many fans to the point where everybody can choose whatever they want out of this series and what they can enjoy. But the bottom's got to hit at some point. I mean, with these movies, I like to see them go in a different direction, but I don't see Michael Bay going away from them anytime soon. So anyone who thinks that this will be his last movie, I can guarantee you, take this with a pinch of salt, that he'll say, no, I'm back for 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We'll see.